for the next era of finance.
Cameron, welcome in. How we doing?
Well, how about yourself?
Welcome to Stabledash Live.
It's great to finally have you on. Yeah, always good to catch up. How is life? I kind of gave a brief intro before we brought you on, but
Yeah.
I think I remember you telling me one time that you started during advisors out of like the Uniswap airdrop craze. So you're definitely you're tenured when it comes to crypto. But yeah, maybe give the people a quick introduction, and then we'll dive into what you've been doing with Soteris Labs.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a CPA. I've been operating this space since 17, but like the real like aha moment is I got the Uniswap airdrop. Back in 2020, I was like, if I have questions on how this is taxed to tax professional, 99.9% of Americans do as well. We got a business baby. So launched my first practice, Darian, doing compliance, advisory work, working with on-chain professionals, contributors. A part of that journey is I realized over the past few years of like compiling financials, doing on-chain recs, that so much the space has raised on just like Google Sheets and good vibes, and they need like more of a confidence layer, an attestation layer. So of that kind of journey, Soteris Labs was born. So what Soteris is, it's an agentic attestation firm. Think like augmented KPMG, big, EY, PwC, doing all the fun financial reporting, disclosures, confidence stuff that they would do, just with some agents.
Can you tell us more? You said raised on Google Sheets and good vibes. That feels very contrary to like, this is the future of finance and we are, the next wave of the internet. And I experienced this when we were going on. Is this your, I think.
No, it's Soteris Labs. No, it's an insurance platform.
Hold on. Give me a second,
Andre,
guys. Sorry.
Here.
No, don't touch anything. So Zach, tell us about your business.
Interview me. Well, I was just going to tell you about how when I was working in the payroll space, it was shocking. Where it was like, "Hey guys, how are you doing payroll?" They're like, "Yeah, we got a Google sheet with all of our team's wallet addresses, and like once a month I go through and I send them the money." So you're right. It's like these companies that are raising millions of dollars that are building the future of finance. Not only from their payroll are they running on a Google sheet. So like unpack that problem like a little bit more. And I could see how it works for an early stage 5-person team, but
Yeah.
where do the cracks in the armor start to develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming down to what I saw is like there were a handful of like layer ones, significant protocols I've seen that raised capital in the last cycle. And I felt like during that like whole euphoria, like anything can be tokenized, anything can be DeFi, all these various permutations and deviations of what DeFi can be. But there was no due diligence because it was just hope. And now the hope is gone, right? The bear market changes. There's introspection, there's due diligence, there's scrutiny. And people are coming back and going, well, where's my money, right? And a lot of what I've seen now is like in this area of like we can go out and do a, IDO or a fair launch and all these things, which is great. Like I think those are very novel forms of raising capital. There's a reason why we have securities laws and financial statements and investor protections. And a lot of what I'm trying to do with Soteris is take this weird machine readable on-chain language and put into something that, a 65-year-old DD guy would understand or some investor, etc. But there's just so much stuff out there where it went hope, drive a lot of attraction, the token goes out, but then at the end of the day, it's like, so what about your financial book of records? So it's pretty dismal in the current state. It's amazing. I've seen people raise 10, 15, $25 million. And I've had attorneys come back to me saying, hey, like we strike down audit review provisions from our deal docs because it's just not possible to get this done. So we're just trying to bring back some trust, some verification, some overall confidence in the space because it's certainly been scorned as of late.
So you obviously are in the weeds, right? And I know I say Darian, you said Darian, so I try
Whatever.
that might be etched in my brain. You did some business work, not just personal work. How does this work now evolve? Like why isn't this just a business line at Darian? Like what warrants this becoming a whole, new company in Soteris Labs?
Yeah, it's a completely different risk portfolio. It's a different type of business, different types of working procedures. So if you think about what Darian Advisors is, it's compliance, it's advisory, it's preparing the financial records, either for your investors, for the IRS, for third parties, whatever that be. Soteris sits on a layer on top of that, which is essentially ascertaining to what you're saying. So if you go, hey, my protocol earned $25 million in revenue, fantastic. Underneath drawing, I prepare that, do financial statements, and a attestation-based model. I go, great. You said you made $25 million. Prove it. Show me the records. Show me the control of the assets. Show me that you're actually on that multi-sig, all that fun stuff as well. So it's a layer on top of it. And contrary to just regular old accounting, right? In the case of attestation or assurance, is we take, management company's words, prove it. And if we prove it and it's there, great. If we prove it, it's not there and it's wrong, I lose my license, people get hurt. So there is a layer of risk to that as well as responsibility when we issue statements on those financials.
And so you had said, one of the things I'd asked you, like, what are you excited to dive into? And then one of the things that stuck out, you had said that attestations and proof of reserves are just marketing terms. I think as Drew and I have gone through and reviewed how many stablecoins projects and how many teams that are issuing stablecoins, that is one of the first things we kind of drift towards to say, like, are you right? But there's also been, I think, a lot of other projects kind of popping up and saying, like, hey, how do we know this is actually true? Like, who is verifying this? How do we know that this, you didn't just tell Claude to go, make a spreadsheet and that's your attestation? So like, where do those fall short? And like, what do you actually mean by saying like, those are just marketing?
Yeah.
Terms?
Well, I mean, a protocol can easily surface like, hey, I've got CAM USD, right? And these are the, the smart contract behind there, and you can verify, like, great, that's all it's there. But what about the other side of it? What about the obligations, the liabilities? No one's really asked those questions. And it's, it actually is pretty funny. I banter back and forth with Xerix and GMI of DeFi Llama. He's like, DeFi Llama is going to do attestation work. And it's like, cool. So what do you mean by attestation? Are you verifying? Are you making sure that the procedures, the steps to generate those are correct? Are you confirming that, hey, that multi-sig supporting and controlling that smart contract is actually controlled by the protocol or some third party? So because it's very public and we can just go through a permissionless environment, it's all on the blockchain, like, great, the number's there. But behind that, is that number actually verifiable and true? It's the same reason when, public companies come out and they say, hey, like, I had this much in earnings. That earnings statement on the 10Q or the 10K comes back with an auditor verifying, testing the invoices, the overall transactions, et cetera, to make sure those financial statements are sound. You can't just say it. You can say it as long as someone goes, great, I verified it's actually true.
Cameron,
I want to give you the mic
for
here.
you. Yeah. I'm curious for you. Just, you've seen a lot of the behind the scenes of a lot of real active volume operators, people coming to you who have problems or opportunities to get clarity, and you're helping them with that. I'm wondering how you've seen the role of stablecoins play the change some of these issues or opportunities from a tax or accounting standpoint that some of your clients are realizing. In terms of like maybe some common pitfalls or opportunity. I know I'm trying to like frame it the right way. Like,
no, I've been good
opportunities for learning that you see clients have as stablecoins have become more integrated and embedded into the financial system.
I remember doing my first year of like taxes with stablecoins, and I was like, why is it saying like 4,000 here is like the cost base? And it was like I had moved $1,000 4 times or something like that. I remember texting Cameron and being like, dude, can you explain this to me? Like, this makes no sense. So maybe that's a good example to start to like break down, is like how those are actually calculated when you're moving $1,000 worth of stable coins, and what that would do to your, I can't remember if it was cost basis. I could be wrong, but I'm sure you know the example.
Yeah, I think it was like when you brought it to me, it's like, hey, I bought like 10 grand of USDC, but it's like, I sold it for ETH or something else. And it's like, it's actually 2 or 3 transactions. So like, although the same 10 grand is moved through, you've got proceeds that just kind of get grossed up because every single transaction is reportable. And the fundamental problem with stablecoins, especially in the eyes of the IRS, which is there's a de minimis right now with 1098 reporting under a certain threshold, doesn't get reported by the exchanges. Because it's treated as property, every single transaction is taxable. It's an event. It's not treated like currency or USD. So when you think about USDC, it's like not 1-to-1 with the dollar. It's 1.000001, and that little .0001 is a fundamental difference. And that's just from the pure tracking. It has lots, cost bases, what you're selling, even though it's functionally de minimis, transaction fees, all those things are kind of baked into it, which changes the overall calculus. But going back to your question is like, where do you see like issues with it? It's just I feel like same with DeFi before, same with everything is the overall tech and ability to use the tools goes so fast, which God willing, amazing. Like it's great to see new permutations of how to use stablecoins, treasury management solutions, paying contractors, employees, holding yield, all this stuff. The accounting struggles to keep up with it. So, I've worked with other platforms, like Altitude, a few other people that do like their own stablecoin solution. Fantastic, right? We can track, we can pay, but the accounting struggles. I got to use a sub ledger. I've got to export it out. Like it doesn't quite go into QuickBooks. So that although the infrastructure is there to facilitate the transactions, the data, the reporting layer kind of lags behind. So, and it's a disservice, which is why internally we've done some work to do stablecoin accounting because I don't want to spend $500, $1,000 a month on some accounting software just for dollars functionally. So that's one hindrance to adoption is just the accounting, but compliance is going to compliance.
Yeah. We actually use Altitude for our business, and the way that I pay myself for paying myself out, I will transfer stable coins from our Altitude business account to my Coinbase personal account. And then I will off ramp or withdraw stable coins into my personal bank. And then I actually recently saw a notification that was like, you sold X amount of stable coins. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Like, but it sounds like
and it gives you that mini heart attack. You're like, wait, did am I missing something?
You're like, how do I report this? I didn't make any money on this. Do I have capital gains to think about? Like, it's just it sounds like we're living in this kind of weird regulatory. So how are you helping platforms like Altitude or individuals like Drew Rogers as they're thinking about using stablecoins as a core means to transact or run their companies?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like supporting with their financial reporting. So going through and going, great. If I'm a startup and 100% of my fin suite or my operations are on this tool, let's help them do their accounting on the tool. And it's the same reason why Mercury's come out because obviously every startup, well, 90% of them seems like they're using Mercury these days. Cool. We'll get our Gusto plugged into it. We'll do our own bookkeeping product. And that way you don't have to use QuickBooks and Xero. And it's one of these things of like, if your financial suite is very much condensed or with one kind of ecosystem or silo, you don't really need to leave. However, like back in the day, I work with people that were use their multi-sig, they have rain cards. And just for that simple situation for a 5-10 person startup, we'd have to go leverage in $500 a month for a subledger, $100 a month for QuickBooks, time and effort to categorize it. And it's just a pain in the rear. So the more that these kind of treasury, accounting, banking, stablecoin type companies can facilitate more of that overall reporting, it just makes the overall founder operator's life that much easier. So they don't have to use 3-5 million different tools just to do their accounting.
When it comes to, go ahead, Drew. I think we had a lag.
When you think about serving, like really your focus, I feel like, Cameron, you could be working with so many different kinds of individuals, organizations. It looks like you also have strategic partnerships as well at the business to make this really easy. How do you think about where the opportunity for the business really sits most? Like when you think about the difference between partnerships and clients and also the opportunity that's ahead for them, for the firm specifically, where do you personally see opportunity for the firm? Like who are you trying to connect with most right now as you grow?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's working with channel partners and those are also working with clients. I joke with my go-to-market guy. It's like, we're not going to go out and market to startups. Like no one's going to come in demanding an attestation report, a POR, an audit. Who's going to demand it is the person giving them money or wants to make sure their money's there. So it's working with those folks. So venture funds, other providers. We built a data agnostic layer that the agents can run on. So if we're pulling out from your MCP and CryptoWorth, or we're going into Awaken or some, don't really care what the data is, we could speak to it. So as we go out, I mean, the whole point of this is good work in this is it's been a barrier to entry, right? Typically, in the case of assurance or attestation, the ones that are qualified are big fours. So your KPMGs, your EYs, your Deloittes, which charge high dollar, they throw a bunch of hours at it, and they feel comfortable with your business. The alternative is there's folks out there, regional firms, nationals that don't have the expertise, but are willing to take a gamble on the overall reporting to make sure that, hey, you want your opinion, you want your POR done, you want your attestation there. What Soteris aims to do is democratize that to a degree, jokingly, like bread for the people. But if we can drive down the cost of getting a POR, an attestation, an audit, a financial review, that just enables more projects, more folks out there to get the verification, the assurance, that comfort layer that will help them go out and get more money, fulfill their dreams, their visions of what they're trying to do. And it's something where without that, someone coming from a traditional venture fund is not going to grant that capital allocation. They're not going to invest. So I like to say is like getting a review, a comp, even an audit, just like puts a tie on your business casual. It just makes you look more professional. You've gone through the overall steps. You've proven through rigor and testing and analytics that, hey, my financials going back to square one aren't just coming out of a G sheet. I didn't vibe code or vibe accounting them with Claude. Like they actually have merit to them and they can be a useful tool.
All right, now bring us in, Andrew. If you might want to bring that back up, because I think this was a big thing that it's there's all this FUD around where does AI fit in to these inherently trust related industries? How much can AI replace your CPA? On the financial advisor side, we've seen Coinbase go out and say, we're going to get our AI registered as a financial advisor. I'm going to guess you're on the side that's like, hey, we don't want that. We want to empower CPAs. So please don't let me put words in your mouth. But from what I know about you and our conversations, I felt like that was accurate. So where does AI fit into this conversation? I even asked you directly too, like, how should we think about Entendre? What is the difference? What are the similarities here? And give us that breakdown of how you think about augmenting CPAs and retooling the CPA.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I mean, we've seen different variations of this in the past of like all the big four firms and even just like smaller firms, they outsource, right? So like whether it was to an intern or to overseas, it was a cost reduction model. Now, most of the major firms and firms are outsourcing their data entry, their reconciliation, which is just cost savings. It doesn't pass over the client. What we're doing with Soteris is fundamentally changing how you operate. So I like to think that I have, and the CPAs we work with, a bunch of AI assurance seniors, assurance staff associates that don't stop. They don't show up hungover in the office. They keep going. We can go to a deeper degree of depth on our procedures analytics, and it helps me surface or what I need to actually make judgment on. So it abstracts away all, like, for lack of a better term, the BS work. I don't want to go through and verify that, hey, this ties out or this foots. These are deterministic procedures. Where my time is as a professional, with my time in industry, should be focused on making the tough calls, where AI shouldn't be making that, signing off, where you can't just infer based upon what the predictive LLMs are trying to do. It's you actually have to make a call. And specifically in the assurance or an attestation work is if I make the wrong call as a CPA, I get sued. I lose my license. There's no bread on the table for my family. So there is that heavy sort of Damocles above me where I have to make the right decision. When you abstract that away and use AI for judgment entirely, or you don't have that in the case of people just saying I have attestation or POR, like I said, it's just marketing. So you need to have that risk where if I don't get it right, I pay, and that because you don't get it right, that's the reason why you're going to make sure your decisions are correct within materiality. But yeah, to a degree, it's that risk of loss of license that infers how you view the work, how you interpret the work, and how you make the tough decisions that a predictive LLM just can't do.
I like the way you say that here. AI prepares, humans include. Sort of like a summary of that take a little bit. Just I was reading through this as you were speaking. These are huge, like, macro shifts in terms of this kind of tailwind that we're talking about. Like SAB 121, for instance, was like, when I was at Coinbase, that felt like just a massive pent up demand for so many clients who wanted to get in the game. Like, speak a little bit to how these being rescinded, these types of acts, the Genius Act coming in, has put more of a spotlight on this specific topic of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just further cements why I'm in this space in the first place. Is like I got into crypto because, hey, it's a blockchain, it's a public ledger, it makes my job easier. I can infer, pull, query, and I don't have to like chase fake statements, CSVs. And I think as that world goes forward to that route, it's the same thing with stablecoins, with Genius, with with large TradFi moving on chain. It's just functionally easier to enable commerce. And as you enable commerce and have there's more expansion of commerce, there's just more accounting. Like the same thing, like people lament Picobee and all this stuff post, Enron and WorldCom. Yeah, it sucks, but like there's more work and there's more rigor and more procedures and more standards and more requirements. And as the overall space matures, as we learn to like basically what to call it, how we classify it, how we account for it, where does it go on the balance sheet, how do we actually treat these weird transactions, there's just got to be someone on top of that going, okay, did the actual general ledger do it correct? Or is it actually, and the same thing goes back to when I was a staff auditor back in 2012, is I was auditing the timing of payables and receivables. Did they land before year end? Did they actually get paid out? Were the services rendered? And you could theoretically automate that, but you actually have to go through and read and confirm and understand and make sure it's there. And that's that make sure assurance is why we'll still need it as this economy out and expands. But a lot of where I see, the true expansion is just based upon agentic finance, the ease to do business, the ability to transact, do high volumes. The same reason retail blows up with a couple $1 million a trade or a couple million transactions in hyperliquid, we'll see the same extraction just with businesses and other operating through various microtransaction payments. So unfortunately, someone's got to actually tally it, do reports, summarize it, and here I am, the humble accountant.
Are you surprised with the lack of alternatives or like the lack of other people in this, or are you like, does that kind of shock you, or are there actually more that meets the eye here in terms of people trying to solve this problem like you are?
I think I can definitely say on the tax, certainly on the assurance side of things, in the account, it's notoriously underserved. There's so many CPAs out there that are crypto CPAs that by their actions hurt their clients in the tax side of things. They don't know, they're trying. The same thing applies to national firms trying to do audit work for crypto where they don't understand what an RPC is, what a smart contract is. And even I was joking, one of the auditors of a DAT, I have a friend on the inside from KPMG, they asked, what's gas? KPMG is asking what gas is, auditing a DAT. So there's a lack of understanding that will have real world implications. And unfortunately, most firms learn on your dime. They'll charge high fees to throw some staff auditor in there to figure that out. So I don't see any of the folks that are personally operating as competitors. I've had some folks actually reach out to me that we know we're in the same lane going, hey, how can I help? How can I augment this? Because if they can do this work more, a rising tide lifts all boats. And at the end of the day, we just want our clients to get the best work possible. Another example too is I saw another stablecoin as a service issuer. Their POR was done by a small Midwestern firm that didn't have digital asset partner. And they're signing off saying, yes, this is good. And it's that type of risk, that type of not lack of understanding that can actually have real world implications on the public, on investors, should they make those wrong judgment calls without the right understanding. So I'm very excited. I want more people to come in and service, more people using crypto, more people transacting, uplifts my bags, uplifts your bags. It's overall better for the space. So the more the merrier, but right now it's notoriously underserved in all accounts in the industry.
Yeah. Do you think, I'm just thinking through this of, I think Kareem had this stat where he was just talking about this exodus that's going to happen with CPAs retiring, the amount of CPAs that are coming and people going to a school for accounting. How do you think we solve that problem? Like, is it CPAs like yourself? Like, you got to go to college campuses and like do some of the, or like high schools and talk about how this is actually this profession isn't going away because of AI. It's just changing. I feel like this is one of those sectors when people think about like what could a successful career look like that gets overlooked, but is also going to be one that seems like there's not going to be a lot of competition.
Maybe asked a little bit differently. Just like, what would you? I was golfing with a buddy of mine who just graduated with his master's of accounting. We're playing golf with him, and he is kind of just like entering his career in the very open handed with like what he wants to do with it. What would your advice be to smart, intelligent, but kind of like unaware of the future of how AI plays into this a little bit? Like, what would your advice be to those who are, they're recently graduated or like entering college, thinking about this career path? Like, what advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, I mean, as a former Luddite or neo-Luddite, as people call me, it's like I was slow to AI adoption a couple years back. I mean, I used like a note transcriber, I would search on it, some composition. But my biggest, I guess, advice would be just to go through and learn how to work differently. So much of what firms are teaching, how they're operating, are based upon old procedures. I think about my first days at RSM back in 2012 as I was physically printing out the prior audit report, put together a manila binder, and then presenting that to the partner to go, yep, this is ready to go for the engagement, the actual work papers. And so much of that is, take it just 10, 15 years on, is probably still similar, just in more digital fashion. So how you're working or how you're approaching work is changing. So it's one of those things of, I had my own kind of personal mini like crisis moment a year back. I was like, well, shit, like AI's can take my job. Like this is thought work and it's getting better at it. But the thing is how I appreciate it is like, it does the work I don't want to do. I don't want to do reconciliations. I want to have a skill and train that to actually do the reconciliation work for me. So the better ways to augment, live, and work with that tooling is the best. And just the overall kind of like where to actually learn is just dive into judgment work, dive into complex scenarios, really, get those those stripes. And it's something where, I don't envy someone graduating college right now in accounting. Right now, even for our firm, for Darian and for Soteris, I probably won't hire a junior staff senior auditor or an accountant. There's just no need. We found ways to work differently, to abstract away that. So the time I spent early in my career just doing data entry, rolling forward work papers, doing that testing, firms are slowly pulling that ladder. So where you can kind of find ways to get into it, find the right space where you can learn, develop, sharpen those, those knives. That's the most important part. In addition to just figuring how to work with AI the best way possible, augmenting yourself and learning how to operate. It's tough. It is a tough place to be an accountant. Because like I said, is like, I feel good. I'm 36. I've spent my time in industry. I've got practicum. I can leverage and know how to use the tools to get the answer I need. But someone come out of college doesn't have the right cognition or the right judgment to actually understand what they're looking at. So that's just by time in the trenches. So finding more ways to get in the trenches.
Yeah. One maybe tactical strategy could be just like finding a platform. I know you have a list of really great partners that you have either integrated with or work really close with, like Integral. And I feel like going after teams like that, or like we mentioned Entendre, getting close to those types of demands, because that's really in some ways where the demand is coming from. Like knowing those platforms, integrating with them deeply, knowing those teams, taking them out to dinner, like getting close with the tech side or the software layer could be good too. So yeah, that's good stuff, man. Good stuff. We also might be in the market for some of this stuff too as we grow. So that's on your prospect list.
Level question, because this was an interesting thing that Kareem dug into. Any LLMs right now that are leading the pack in your eyes for this type of work?
I mean, I'm using like a multi-judgment model. So like a mix of Claude, Gemini, and OpenAI, some perplexity here and there, and just battle testing to figure out what's best. I found from my own journey, here we go, ops. I'm just kidding. But like when it comes to like design work and narrative work and planning work, like Claude is fantastic. As far as like, here's the brief, here's the understanding. And kudos my partner in this, Tommy from Soteris, is like Claude sometimes when it does back end like engineering, especially when it comes to deterministic, the testing, the procedures, really sucks when we're trying to code and build it out. OpenAI and ChatGPT and Codex has been phenomenal. The back end work,
Interesting.
Through battle says adversarial stuff, and especially because I am doing so much adversarial testing, like I got to make sure that it actually comes to the same conclusion 99.9% of the time. Because if it makes the wrong call, ciao license. But yeah, using a mix of the three big ones, but just depends. It's like there's no right answer. Same thing as when you go out and you're testing someone's POR. You can query 5 different sources. They're going to tell you the same amount of coins in circulation. It depends on the state of the chain, what node, what time, what's there. So just trying to feel comfortable with that kind of spectrum of answers.
Yeah. Awesome. I actually just sent you on what I was referencing from Kareem with this benchmark. So you got that on your Telegram. But Cameron, thanks. It was always good to catch up. Thanks for coming on Stabledash Live. And we'll have to, maybe you'll be our resident CPA expert that we'll bring back on to give commentary on the stuff that
we'll trade a sponsorship for free accounting services. We'll just barter something like that. Get a little give and take. Thanks for your time, Cameron. Good to meet you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.